So today we're in the national forest near Tijeras, and it's called the Pine Flats with good reason. This particular section isn't particularly flat. I'm actually on a small local hill, the peak, but you can see we've got various pines all around doing their thing, growing happily. And it's a beautiful natural area. Got a bit of wind in the background today, so hopefully the audio will come out all right. Um, and we're gonna see what we can add to this to make it perhaps a little more interesting with some of the trees going around here. At some point we'll have to come through and identify some of the local species in addition to doing this more typical stuff. Just because there's so many interesting choices up here to look at and to consider. And we've got the usual species, and then we drop down and we have all of the yucca species that have been stabbing me all the way up the hill, because there's actually no particular trail up here. You just kind of bushwhack and heading upward until you can't go up anymore. Anyway, today I wanted to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence. It's been something that keeps coming up as a discussion point, and is one that's certainly causing a bit of consternation lately. It is in some ways kind of evolving the discussion, just as we talk about changing and evolving our artificial intelligence systems. It's something that certainly is worth considering in some detail. And there is no particular reason to believe that we're going to suddenly come to any amazing conclusion one way or another that's going to resolve the matter. But as we continue to talk about more of the ChatGPT and similar systems and all of the different things they're able to do and the changes that they're making in the world, the idea that we should shut them down or slow them significantly, and that there should be real major reins put into place on this to hold people back from utilizing or experimenting with artificial intelligence keeps coming up. This seems to be a little bit unreasonable and a little short-sighted. Not that we shouldn't be cautious and consider what we're doing with any technology. Everything we develop or have developed in the past has been shown that it can have negative effects and that people can put it to negative uses. And artificial intelligence is no different, whether that's using it for military applications as opposed to medical applications, or using it in a positive way to better understand how to, say, manage a system like this, or finding ways to better undermine the current status quo in dark ways. But to say that we should just stop leaves some issues at hand that we need to consider. First of all, we have the problem that if we do really just decide to stand down and discontinue it within whatever jurisdiction we have, well, that jurisdiction, that country, that organization is simply going to be behind whoever does decide to push forward with it. This isn't something that is going to be stopped universally, and it's a sort of technological development that can be done fairly quickly and easily in small laboratories, small teams, in isolated places. It's not like this is something that's going to be easily policed or maintained in a shutdown mode, even if it's not being supported as broadly by public funds. At this point, private companies have found a million reasons to continue to throw resources at it, and that will continue to be the case whether it's publicly accessed available or not. We've seen many times when something highly desirable and highly useful has been banned or outlawed, that people find a way to make it continue to happen, regardless of whatever law enforcement efforts are made. Perhaps the classic example in the United States was that of prohibition, and that was just people wanting their alcohol. Created a whole series of problems. And so, has prohibiting things always been the case? We end up with black markets and underhanded developments. People would brew things in the backwoods, in the bathtub, wherever they could manage it. So that's going to rear its head if we try to shut down the system. Further, we run the risk of leaving it in the hands of people who have a particularly negative goal. One of the advantages of developing it within a better framework with people who have much more positive general interest and are sharing back and forth and constantly vetting each other and working together is that we can come to some general conclusions about what we want it to do and how it should behave within a societal framework, how much we want to restrict certain elements. Once you have it above board, you can actually apply some degree of regulation, and that will be reasonably effective. You can continue to build upon that toward a more desirable AI system. And that is something that we should definitely go for, especially as we head toward more intelligent and more capable systems. One of the major concerns, of course, is that once we hit AGI, we've got a whole nother level, and that it could in some way become problematic, not because specifically of anything the designer did or didn't do, but because it has agency. And if you have a creature or perhaps even a person at that point with agency, they may decide to do some interesting things. Certainly we've seen a great deal of science fiction where this has happened. But perhaps the best way to deal with that and to manage it is simply the same thing we've seen many times over with humanity. Humans are, of course, the only creatures that we have experienced that have our level of intelligence and functional ability to manipulate the environment, etc. And certainly there have always been bad actors among humans. There are, in this case, intelligences that have wanted to do bad things to the other ones. And how have we always managed that? Well, in broad strokes, the way it's always been handled has been to have humans manage humans or push back against them to try to find some kind of balance. It's not perfect by any means. Vicious wars and have been fought many times. Arguably, the people who come out victorious are not always the ones that you would have been fighting for. And of course, there's always dispute and discussion over whose ideas are right or who should be in power. But we have avoided the most catastrophic outcome, which is the destruction of humanity, which is one of the things that is constantly brought up by AI people who have concerns with AI and that want to stand down a little bit, is that there is an existential risk and that we might wipe out humanity completely or do something else that's equally terrible. But so far, with the intelligences that we've had, they're being balanced out pretty well, such that humanity as the whole has managed to flourish and grow and actually become freer and better fed and have by and large, less suffering than it has in the past. The numbers all bear this out, and I'll link to a few of those in the commentary section, talking about how we're actually in just about the best time that's ever been to be alive because of those long-term efforts. And so what we do in order to achieve that then is to have a number of different AI systems, or ASI or AGI, and have them with different backgrounds, personalities. This will happen pretty much organically anyway, as different programmers or different companies and different groups start to create these and create copies and create variations and versions. They're just going to multiply pretty crazily. It's fairly easy to copy these things and to work with them, and we've seen that you can do things with different training models to get them to achieve different goals, just like you would expect with a human child. You effectively raise them in different ways. And so, if we can't keep up as humans, then the AIs can keep up with each other and help to manage some of the areas that maybe humans are not perfectly aligned to do. Of course, that begs another interesting related question about humans and their ability to handle this stuff. Humans, of course, we have our normal limitations. We're very well aware of what those are and how we constantly try to overcome them, but can only get so far. But it's becoming ever more, clear that humans are going to be able to start to improve ourselves significantly, and that one of the ways we're going to be able to keep up and deal with things like the jobs issue, AGI and such, is that they're going to have voluntary and options for essentially upgrading and building systems that will allow humans to be even more effective and more connected. And some people will take advantage of this. And while that brings its own range of questions and potential problems, it may be a potential solution to the AI issues as we go forward. That they won't necessarily be outcompeting all of humanity, because some portions of humanity will actually change what that means and what they're capable of. And that actually is a topic that deserves a little more delving on its own, human upgrading, transhuman elements, and how that might happen in the future. So I'd like to go into more detail on that, but we'll save it for the next time, especially since the sun is setting and we do need to hike out of here. So I'll talk to you next time.